Alright, so let's suppose you are asked to find the slope and the y-intercept of a linear equation that's in standard form. Keep in mind the standard form looks like this. ax plus by equals c, where a is the coefficient of x, b is the coefficient of y, and c is just some constant. And they could look like this. Here's some examples, sort of. 8x plus 2y equals 10. In this case, 8 is the coefficient of x, 2 is the coefficient of y, 10 is some constant. Well, in this case we have here 6 is the coefficient of x, negative 3 is the coefficient of y because it's supposed to be plus. Well, anytime you're subtracting, it's the same thing as adding a negative. So I could go ahead and put a plus. Now we have 6x plus a negative 3y equals negative 9. And here in this case, it's not truly in standard form because the x term needs to be first, but nonetheless, it's not in slope-intercept form. It's kind of a modified standard form, but we do have coefficients of y. So 2 would be the coefficient of y, or in other words, b. And I can turn this subtraction is the same as adding a negative. So the coefficient of x is a negative 4, and then we have this constant 10. Now, if we needed to find the slope and the y-intercept of something in standard form, we could get it in slope-intercept form, where we have the slope and the intercept, by solving for y. Or in other words, we would have to do some algebra here to solve for y. Is there any shortcut I could use to get the slope and the y-intercept? Well, by taking this property here in standard form, ax plus by equals c, I find the slope simply by taking the negative of the coefficient of x and dividing it by the coefficient of y. So if ax plus by equals c, then the slope is negative a divided by b. And the y-intercept, I can take that constant and divide by the coefficient of y, in this case b, and that gives me my y-intercept. So let's do an example. Let's say I need to find the slope of 8x plus 2y equals 10. I need to first find, so m equals slope, I need to find the coefficient of x. In this case, it's a. The coefficient of x is 8, but I need to negate it. So instead of having a positive 8, I have a negative 8. And I need to divide it by the coefficient of y, which in this case is a 2. So I'm going to divide by 2. Now I can simplify this. Negative 8 divided by 2 is a negative 4. So in this case, slope is negative 4. Using this shortcut, this little tool. Now, let's solve the same thing. Let's find the slope by solving for y. Getting it in slope-intercept form. Once I find out what the coefficient of x is in this case, once it's in this form, that's my slope. But I'll go ahead and get it to look like this. Something like that. mx plus b. So I'm going to rewrite the equation. 8x plus 2y equals 10. What I'm trying to do is I'm trying to isolate that y. Get it by itself. So I see here I've got an x term and some y term. They've each got coefficients. I want to isolate this by itself. Get this by itself. So in other words, I've got to get rid of this 8x. This 8x is positive. 8x plus 2y, it's the same thing as 2y plus 8x. What's the opposite of plus 8x? Is minus 8x. What I do to one side of the equation, I must do to the other side of the equation. This cancels out. So on the left-hand side, all I'm left with is 2y. Got my equal sign, and I've got 10 minus 8x. I want my x term first. Well, 10 minus 8x is the same thing as negative 8x plus 10. Well, let's compare this to slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b. 2y equals negative 8x plus 10. I'm almost there. I know what 2y's is, but I want to know what y is, what 1y is. So what can I do about that? 2 is multiplied by y. Y is being multiplied by 2. The opposite of multiplied by 2 is divide by 2. So I simply divide by 2 on that side. Now since I'm dividing by 2 on the left side of the equation, I'm going to divide by 2 on the right side of the equation. 2 divided by 2 is 1, so 1y, and I can just write that as y. Bring down my equal sign. Now, if I'm dividing this expression by 2, well, I can divide by, or I could divide into parts. So I can just look at the first part. A negative 8x divided by 2. Well, negative 8 divided by 2 is a negative 4. So I've got negative 4x. And now I've got 10 divided by 2 is a positive 5 or plus 5. Now I compare y equals negative 4x plus 5 and y equals mx plus b. It's in this form, slope-intercept form, where the coefficient of x is my intercept and this b, this constant b, is my y-intercept. M is my slope, b is the y-intercept. So in this case, the slope is negative 4, slope equals negative 4. Doing the algebraic steps, or simply using my little tool, where slope equals negative a over b. So now I'm going to go ahead and try to find the slope with this formula, or I'm sorry, with this equation, 6x minus 3y equals negative 9, or 6x plus a negative 3y equals a negative 9. So I'm going to go back to my formula. M, slope, equals a negative a, in this term my a is a 6, so a negative a will be negative 6 divided by the b. In this case, the b term is a negative 3. So negative 6 divided by a negative 3. I can reduce that, simplify that. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. 6 divided by 3 is 2. So in this case, slope is 2. I don't need to go through and put it in slope-intercept form to find it. This way works. Now let's look at this third example. It's not in this form, but it's close because I've got a coefficient on x and I've got a coefficient on y. I could rewrite it, but I'm not really worried about it. A is going to be that coefficient on x. In this case, I've got a negative 4. But I've got to have a negative a. So I've got a negative 4 over b, the coefficient of y. The coefficient of y in this case is a 2. What does that reduce to? Well, first of all, a negative negative is a positive. So a positive 4 divided by 2 is the same as 4 divided by 2, which equals 2. Okay, so there you have it. We were able to go from standard form, and we were able to find our slope in just a couple easy steps. Now let's say we want to find the y-intercept as well. Well, this is pretty easy. Y-intercept. Well, our formula tells us, or our little trick, our little tool here, says to take that constant and divide it by the coefficient on the y. So in this case, the constant is 10, the coefficient of y is 2, so it's going to be 10 divided by 2, which equals 5. Let's compare that to what we found over here in slope-intercept form. Y equals mx plus b, where m is slope and b is the y-intercept. Here I found that y-intercept was 5. Here I found that y-intercept was 5. So here's the proof. It works. So let's go ahead and find the y-intercept then of the next expression, or the next equation, 6x minus 3y equals negative 9. So I take that constant, a negative 9, and we're going to divide it by the coefficient of y, which in this case is a negative 3. A negative 9 divided by a negative 3. Well, a negative divided by a negative is always positive, and 9 divided by 3 is 3. And last but not least, we can find the y-intercept of the equation 2y minus 4x equals 10. I'm going to take my y-intercept equals that constant, 10, divided by the coefficient on y, in this case the coefficient on y was 2. So once again, we have a y-intercept of 5. Well, now that I've got my slope and I've got my y-intercept, I can also go ahead and write both of these equations in slope-intercept form. Too easy, right? Slope is 2, y-intercept is 3, so y equals 2x plus 3 in this case. And in this case down here for this last one, slope is 2, y-intercept was 5. So in slope-intercept forms, y equals 2x plus 5. Without going through all these steps, we've got it in a form that we can use it, we can plug it into the calculator, and we can graph it, and do all sorts of other things with it. I hope this video tutorial was useful. If so, that's great, let me know. If not, then, well, you can let me know as well. Let me know what I can do to improve, make it better for you. I'll see you next time. Thank you.